Yeah, so I think it's important for investors to still understand that Bitcoin is a risk asset, right? It trades almost tick for tick with the Nasdaq 100. It trades very similar to what Tesla does. If you
Hmm.
actually match up the Tesla chart and the Bitcoin chart, it's very similar when it was making its highs around that same period. So I think we have to remember that if we're anticipating a scared market where we're scared of inflation, we're scared of recession, and the tech stocks do take a hit in the near term, I do expect further downside in Bitcoin. A safety trade to offset inflation. That's not quite where Bitcoin is just yet. You have to wait a little while for it to mature as an asset, and then eventually you will get in that situation. So I actually have, over the next 6 to 12 months, I think Bitcoin could be headed to 20,000 or even sub 20,000 before it finally makes that bottom.
The cryptocurrency market is still reeling from the recent dip caused by the market expecting a double-digit inflation figure. At 8.5%, we aren't so far off, and experts like Gareth Soloway believe the situation will continue to worsen probably for the rest of the year. Soloway is a renowned technical analyst and the founder of InthemeStocks.com. With over 20 years of trading experience, he is quite familiar with market trends and price movements. In a recent interview, Soloway discusses his outlook for Bitcoin amidst the rising inflation and extreme fear in the market. He explains that the upward momentum in the general market last year was because of the excessive money printing and stimulus checks. However, since that has ended, the market will decline sharply to return to its pre-pandemic phase. Soloway also thinks this will affect Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrency market and possibly send Bitcoin crashing to $20,000 or less. However, he does have some great news for all investors. So ensure you watch the video to the end and click the like button. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
So I'm in the camp where the Fed will raise as much as they can. My big feeling is that by the end of this year, and I'm guessing at least 4 or 5 times this year, and I know they're projecting eight. I just
Yeah.
worry that you're going to see the economy start to come to a screeching halt and
Hmm.
potentially head into recession. And again, I'm making a bold call saying that by the end of 2022, early 2023, we will see the economy into some sort of recessionary period. And I don't think the Fed will hike at that point once we get into a recession.
What kind of impact does that have on the traditional markets as a whole? And I'm talking mainly the stock market.
Yeah, so it's going to have a profound impact, right? You have the risk that the Fed is going to have to be more aggressive in raising rates, so therefore that will hurt the economy. Therefore, that kind of trails through to earnings and the potential to force a recession or create a recession where people have less money to spend on buying things. Then you have the fact that prices are much higher, so people can only afford to buy a certain amount of things versus what they could have bought a year or two ago. So I think it's a big issue now you're coming into where if you see a recession in this economy, how do we get out of it? I mean, over the last 20 plus years, the Fed has been able to print us out of a recession because
Mm.
inflation was 2% or sub 2%. You can't do that when you have 8 or 10% inflation because then you're going to see 20% inflation. So it's a very interesting, scary, I will say, situation that we're coming into. And I do think the markets will be heading lower. If you look at the charts from where we were pre-COVID to where we still are, we're still
Mhm.
extremely elevated, which means
Yep.
to me that we're on this kind of hyped up printing press kind of economy, or at least stock market. And I think that there's a lot more downside to go, at least to where we were in the longer term trend. In fact, let me throw up my chart here so you guys can kind of get a sense of this. But this is the S&P 500, right? And if I zoom all the way out, going back to 2000 and kind of 12 down here, we can
Mhm.
clearly see that this was your longer range trend, right?
Yep.
And what you could see here is this was your COVID dip, and then this was the market on steroids where the Fed was printing as much money as they were. Now we have come off of that, but you're not back to your longer COVID, pre-COVID kind of trend line. So I think in the very least, you're coming back to this level on the spiders, which is around the 380 marker. And my
Mhm.
guess is when we start to see the recessionary situation, maybe even stagflation coming out, that could really spook the markets to even more downside. So I do say that investors should be very cautious. It doesn't mean there's not good opportunities for shorter term swing trades, but just be aware we could be entering this period in the market where the gains of the upside have been now infused for the next few years, and we could be in a struggling market.
Soloway predicts that we will enter into some sort of recessionary period before the year ends. His reason is the proposed 7 to 8 interest rate hikes, which could very well bring the economy to a screeching halt, meaning a period of slow economic growth. This is certainly not something to look forward to given the current state of the economy. A technical analyst also talks about Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency by market cap. As he has stated previously, Soloway predicts that Bitcoin will crash to $20,000 or less within the next 6 to 12 months. However, his long-term outlook for the coin is much more favorable.
Yeah, so I think it's important for investors to still understand that Bitcoin is a risk asset, right? It trades almost tick for tick with the NASDAQ 100. It trades very similar to what Tesla does. If you actually match up the Tesla chart and the Bitcoin chart, it's very similar when it was making its highs around that same period. So I think we have to remember that if we're anticipating a scared market where we're scared of inflation, we're scared of recession, and the tech stocks do take a hit. In the near term, I do expect further downside in Bitcoin. Now, again, I am long. I actually did buy long just yesterday in the evening off this 40,000 level, just for a quick little trade up here. But what I see on the bigger chart is that we do have what's called a bear flag formation. Bear flag formation is essentially a big down move like we've seen here. So you can see this big down move, and then look at this kind of channel that we're stuck in. And ultimately, when you look at 1,000 of these charts or 10,000 of this formation, the odds favor a move to the downside. So I would say that investors, if you're looking at a safety trade to offset inflation, that's not quite where Bitcoin is just yet. You have to wait a little while for it to mature as an asset, and then eventually you will get in that situation. So I actually have, over the next 6 to 12 months, I think Bitcoin could be headed to 20,000 or even sub 20,000 before it finally makes that bottom. I do think after that, it starts to mature into the digital gold, and you will see it far outpace the returns on gold in the next 5 to 10 years, easily surpassing 100,000, maybe even 500,000. But short term, it trades with technology. When people get scared, you see Bitcoin fall, and I think that will continue at least this year. Yeah, so I think in terms of the charts here, and you can see here how we are getting a bounce, and I want to show you guys this trend line because I think that's the way the crypto market to me is. But look at this beautiful trend line, how it connects through this area, right through here, and it makes sense that we're getting a bounce right here. Now, again, my guess is you're going to kind of head back towards 40,000, 41, maybe 42,000 before you get into resistance. So as a shorter term trader, that's what I look for. I look to capture those shorter term moves. But then I do think it's going to see some further downside after that. So again, if you're a trader, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Bitcoin to kind of be long, be short, be long, be short. In fact, if you look at this larger kind of channel, I mean, it has played perfectly off this one. Look at the bounces and then the pullbacks off the high end. And these lines are perfectly parallel. It's kind of the amazing thing about the charts. There's no rhyme or reason why it happens. It just happens. It's psychological for the market. But again, amazing how you kind of came right up here, and then that's where the selling started. And likely then again, if we came down to this line, let's say in a couple weeks, I would be a buyer again of Bitcoin until it breaks this lower trend area. So again, being a trader, I think is great. Otherwise, if you're someone who wants to be in Bitcoin for the longer term, I would recommend dollar cost averaging. Again, yep. I have no guarantees it's going to 20,000. That's where my charts are saying, but it's not a guarantee. So the best thing to do is basically say, I'm going to put X amount of dollars every month consistently long, because again, I do see that future in Bitcoin. I'm such a big believer that we need an asset, a digital gold that is not controlled by the printing presses of the Federal Reserve, where we can store our money in a digital fashion and then ultimately let it become a bigger asset down the line and grow much more, to the sky, really.
While Soloway is quite bearish in the short term, he is as bullish as almost every other expert in the long term, predicting that the coin will hit $500,000 or even more after the crash. You've seen the charts and listened to Soloway's explanation. What do you think, astrology for men or an issue to be concerned about? Please share your thoughts and observations in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You should also turn on post notifications so you get notified immediately we upload a video. Thanks for watching and stay safe.